So, you have a fistful of freewrites and an awesome quickie outline burning a hole in your computer, and you're thinking, mining for gems and organizing my thoughts was fun and all, but how do I pull my best ideas together into a story with a defined structure, an effortless flow, and a pointed purpose? And how can I tell a tale that will grab admissions officers and keep them hooked from my first word to my last? It's not as difficult as you might think. Believe it or not, you have some storytelling tools under your belt already. And the rest, we're going to show you. In this chapter, we'll tackle the next set of burning questions. How can I pull my freewrites into a structured story? What are some creative and memorable ways to start my essay? How do I build my main point? How can I craft an effective conclusion? And once I've written my first draft, how can I tell if it's any good? To start off, let's take a look at the arrows you've added to your quiver thus far. You have a killer topic meant to slay an admissions officer with its incisive observations, ruthless wit, and deadly sincerity. You have a briefcase full of freewrites, carefully cultivated and just begging to fill up an essay page. You have an outline that you've started to fill out with gems from your freewrites. So now, are you just supposed to whip a completed narrative out of thin air? Oh, right. Now it's time to put all of those amazing freewrites in their place. This is the time to snip, flip, and fill, which is the next step in College Essay Academy's uncommon essay approach. Open a new document and see if you can pluck your highlighted sentences and rearrange them into an order that generally aligns with your outline. Now, snip. If you don't like what a line says about you, cut it. If it doesn't further the point of your story, say sayonara. If it's confusing or puts you to sleep, wake yourself up with a few sharp taps on the delete key. You may also love an idea that you had trouble expressing during your earlier freewrites. If you're not ready to cut it, hold that thought because you'll have another chance to expand and rewrite later on. As you sculpt your story, some elements might not fit with your adapting plot points and story plan, and others might come in handy in ways that you never expected. Maybe there are lines in your draft that are valuable, but would be better suited in a different sequence. Perhaps your planned ending graph should be your opener instead. Don't be shy. Move things around. Experiment. You can always hit the undo button. Fill. Search for holes in logic. Mark places you might need to come back to and fill in crucial details. Revisit the paragraphs that contained ideas you liked, but perhaps writing you weren't in love with, and try and breathe some new life into those lines. Draft new content as you feel inspired. The process of snipping away what doesn't serve the essay well, flipping plot points into their proper place, and filling in the missing details will bring you to a nice loose draft that pulls together the best elements of your outline and freewrites. But as you wield those cut, paste, and delete keys, how can you make sure you're headed towards a structure that makes sense and fully emphasizes the points you're trying to make? Let's start with the basics. The best personal essays tell a story. And like all good stories, they have, drumroll, a beginning, a middle, and an end. As you pull the elements of your freewrites into your outline, think about the order of events. Where is the turning point? What is the lesson? What should an admissions officer know about you or the situation up front for proper context? What should they remember about you when they finish reading your essay? Once you determine these answers, you can work to set up the key points by building dramatic tension. The heart of your message will often be revealed, or at least start to unveil itself, about 3/4 of the way through your essay. Maybe breaking your leg in a pogo sticking accident taught you a lesson about balance and led you to develop a plan to bring more literal and figurative balance to your life. Maybe you should let the admissions officer know that you made a full recovery and invented pogo stick yoga, or poga. The order in which you reveal these events does not have to be the order in which they occurred, but it does have to emphasize the point you find most valuable. Was it your ability to draw inspiration from your life, or your resilience in the face of broken bones? Are you sure you want to start your story at the chronological beginning of the action? Maybe you want to begin with the ending and flash back to the events that led up to your opening paragraph. Perhaps you want to dive right into the middle of the action and unpeel the story from the inside out. However you decide to organize your puzzle pieces, be sure to identify a main point and organize the rest of your story around it. Without a true turning point, your essay will read more like a timeline than a story. And don't look down on or outright dismiss the classic chronological layout. Some of the best college essays ever submitted have taken the form of a straightforward and insightful personal story, thoughtfully told. We probably don't have to tell you about the importance of an opening line or paragraph. It's one of the things that likely has been drilled into you in every writing class you've ever taken. This is where you hook your readers. This is where you convince them that it is worth their while to read more, and with full attention. And since you know you need to grab the attention of an admissions officer who's nodding off over essays about the best summer camp experiences ever, you can probably guess that the opening line of your college admissions essay is especially important. An opening line should grab the reader and pull them into a story face first. It should shock or intrigue. No matter how you decide to start your story, know that it needs to be compelling and signal to an admissions officer that you have come to the table with a new approach or something unique and personal to communicate. Like a piece of music whose notes can be reorganized and executed in infinite sequences and styles, there are endless ways to open your story and trumpet your arrival to admissions. Here are just some opening line do's that have the potential to sound the horn, set off fireworks, and wrap a reader in your story. Do open with dialogue. The act of trying to envision someone's voice in your head is instantly engaging and communicates so much about the character and the writer in just a few words. Do ask a question or set up a mystery. Beginning with a line that begs for an answer is a surefire way to draw your reader into a story. Do make them chuckle. Kicking your essay off with humor signals to an admissions officer right away that this just might not be another boring essay. Do surprise the reader. Bam! A cleverly placed sound effect, a line of logic twisted on its head, or even just a description of a particularly strange detail can jolt a reader like a bucket of cold water and widen their eyes to what comes along next. Do break the rules. Actually, strike that. There are no rules. Get creative. Try a thing you've never tried. Open with a sentence fragment. Get vulnerable and reveal something about yourself. Don't be weird for weird's sake, but do experiment and see where your imagination takes you. Do experiment with endless incarnations of opening lines before deciding which words will serve as your introduction to admissions. The right opening line will make itself known, ringing clear as a bell in your head when you reread it. As you can imagine, there are also some opening line tactics that should be avoided, things that will stop admissions officers in their tracks, or worse, lull them right to sleep. Here are some opening line don'ts. Don't restate the question or tell admissions the purpose of your essay. They know why you're here. Don't waste the words, just jump right in. Don't use a quote from an author or other famous person. This is one of the most cliched ways to open an essay. So cliched, it is one of the few college essay-related cliches beyond saving. Unless the quote you're considering adds crucial perspective to your essay, cut it. You don't need it, and admissions officers would rather hear your thoughts and your words. Don't ease the reader in. You have 650 words tops to get your point across to admissions. Every word counts. Don't over-explain, and don't enter your story with trepidation. Dive right in and get things moving. Don't get stuck on the opening line. Yes, a killer opening is important to your essay, but that doesn't mean you have to write it first. If inspiration fails to strike, press on. Once you've written the rest of your story and know where it's going, you'll have a better sense of how to start it. Awesome, but how do I build to my main point? The middle of your essay is where you want to lay out the meat of your story. It is where you will encounter characters that impact your life and where you will make choices that affect your future goals. In the outline phase of the essay writing process, you mapped out a basic order in which your events and epiphanies would unfold. As you're tinkering with these paragraphs, reorganizing your key points, and elaborating on your most important ideas, it is crucial to think about maintaining a certain storytelling momentum. What can you do to actively pull an admissions officer through your narrative with pointed interest? Are there strategies you can use to push a story forward with a sense of urgency? Of course there are. Here are a few of the most effective. Keep your language active. Use the active voice. Another tip we're sure you've heard in English class: maintaining an active voice throughout your essay is a surefire way to up the engagement of a reader. Think about the difference between a presentation about the science behind catnip was given and I gave a presentation about the science behind catnip. In the passive version, you don't even know who gave the presentation. Wouldn't you rather plunge your reader into a story in which things are actually happening, where you and your supporting characters do things instead of having things happen to them? Carefully craft your transitions. Shoddy or abrupt transitions between paragraphs and ideas can jolt a reader out of the action. Make sure you take extra care to smooth out your links from one paragraph to another. Think about phrases like because, as a result, and in addition to. Connecting your ideas in a way that feels seamless and natural allows the reader to stay on the ride with you without having to pause and make the links themselves. Reveal, don't explain, aka show don't tell. Every personal essay is going to require some setup. How did you end up at the carnival at midnight with only one shoe? The trick is to reveal this information through engrossing details, dialogue, and other compelling language. Don't settle for a bare-bones telling in its driest form. Give us some hearty or vibrant descriptions to latch onto. A few carefully selected details often allow you to say a lot. And in an assignment that is relegated to such a small space, it is important to be economical with your words. Look for confirmation. Demonstrating a personal quality or transformation often requires more than a single anecdote. Even if your essay will focus primarily on one experience, try to demonstrate how the lessons you learned reverberated throughout the rest of your life. Including outside examples will demonstrate consistency and a deep self-knowledge to admissions officers. Did learning how to bake help you become more systematic about other aspects of your life? When your friend came to you for help, did you have a history of supporting each other through difficult times? Try to pinpoint moments and details from other parts of your life that will prove to your readers that you are who you say you are. Harness the power of small details. Details allow for the personalization of a story. They are what transform an essay that could have been written by a handful of your peers into an essay that could only have been channeled from your brain through your fingers and onto the page. Details breathe life into your story. And they act as the supporting evidence for bold claims. In fact, excellent details, thoughtfully integrated, can serve as both a claim and the proof in one. For example, let's take a look at these lines from Grayson's last essay.
We tackled larger projects, Frank pulling toilet paper off its roll before I rendered it useless with my expert tangling skills. As we got older, we confided in each other about goals for the future. Mine to become a lawyer fighting for animal rights, and Frank's to run a successful advertising firm. We encouraged each other's dreams and allayed each other's fears.
These colorful lines communicate so much about Grayson's ambition and other inner qualities. They are so much more powerful than a stale declaration like, I am a curious cat, I have ambition, and I value friendship. Don't waste your words talking the talk. Use them to show admissions you're walking the walk. So I wrote an awesome story. Am I done yet? Not quite. The last line of the essay is just as important as the first. The opening line sets a stage of intrigue, and the closing line makes the final mark. Don't waste the chance to leave a lasting impression. The closing line can tie your story up in a neat little bow, or it can leave the admissions officer lingering, wanting for more. No matter what, the final few words of an excellent essay should leave an admissions officer with a feeling of connection with or curiosity about the applicant that they just can't shake. Some closing line do's. Do tie your ending back to your beginning. Tying up your story this way can showcase advanced writerly ability and often has a poetic effect. Do leave the reader wanting more. Leaving your readers with a final thought to ponder or an open-ended range of possible outcomes in front of them is an effective way to spark long-term ruminations about you and your essay. Do end on a crucial reflection. Pointing admissions officers to a main lesson you've learned, without bonking them over the head with it, is often a very effective ending note. Do try out as many closing lines as you need to. Try new things. Edit and tweak. Don't stop until your ending gives you the chills. And of course, some closing line don'ts. Don't end a story with, Thank you for your consideration. We swear people do this. But your essay isn't a cover letter. Keep your reader in the moment and don't waste the last words of your essay. Don't leave us hanging. There's a difference between an intentional cliffhanger or thought-provoking teaser ending and a final line that fails to conclude the action and provide necessary closure. Make sure you're not leaving the reader in a state of confusion. If an admissions officer exits your essay wanting more, it should be by design. Don't just give up. It is incredibly obvious when a writer grows bored of the assignment and allows him or herself to mentally exit the process before that final line. We know it's hard, but keep yourself in it until the end. Celebratory "I finished my essay" dance parties are soon on the way. Okay, so you've pulled together your free writes, sculpted masterful opening and closing lines, and snipped, flipped, and filled in all the glorious points in between. You are staring at a page and a half's worth of blood, sweat, and tears in the form of a personal essay, but you're not sure you're 100% totally want to be with you forever in love with what you've created. What now? Why not try looking at things through a new lens? The classic memoir is the most widely recognized approach to the personal essay and is often executed as a story told directly, with well-emphasized detail and a keen eye for personal reflection. This approach can be extraordinarily effective in showcasing your passions and goals. Still, your story as told in this relatively straightforward style may not ignite the bright spark you hope to set off for your reader. Maybe you feel like something is missing. Maybe you know there is magic left to be mined from this narrative of yours. If that's the case, we suggest you try twisting or filtering your essay through the lens of a metaphor or mechanism to see how your narrative takes shape. A grand metaphor is just as it sounds. A metaphor so all-encompassing it frames your entire story. Filtering your story through a metaphor can unify disparate elements of your life and experiences. What are the commonalities between your various hobbies, strengths, or accomplishments? Is there a discernible theme and a creative way to describe that overlap? Maybe everything from the books you read to your obsession with the long-standing enigmas of science are all indicative of your love of a good mystery. A grand metaphor is also useful when you're attempting to put a new twist on a well-worn subject. For example, can you reveal the unexpected value your short stature has had on your life by discussing the impact other small things have had on you in the world? If you do decide to apply a grand metaphor to your essay, make sure your comparison holds up to a basic logic test. Do you really embody the characteristics of a tissue box? Is life really like a chocolate croissant? If your metaphor isn't excellently crafted, don't use it. And no matter what comparisons you use, admissions officers should still get a window into the real you. If a grand metaphor isn't working for you, maybe you can try using what we refer to as a storytelling mechanism, which is in essence a hyper-stylized structural device. There is something about a good idea filtered through an interesting format that breaks the essay review monotony and demands a reader's attention. Have you thought about writing your essay as an article from a scientific journal? Or maybe an acceptance speech? No matter what, your mechanism needs to be well honed in order for it to be effective. Your newspaper article should open with a lead and maintain a recognizably journalistic tone. The dialogue of your very short play should sound like believable conversation and maintain a consistent format. So what if it's gimmicky? Sometimes it also works. If you are staring at your essay, tearing out your hair because you don't like the look of it through any of these lenses, stop. We like your hair. And you don't have to view your essay through a new lens to craft a good story. Remember, these filters are tools, not rules. A memoir-style narrative can initially be dismissed by applicants who think they have to come up with some complex comparison or strange device to capture the attention of admissions. But remember, a straightforward narrative leaves plenty of room for variation and creativity, and some of the best admissions essays are the ones that keep things simple and true. The final tests. For the first time, we are going to ask you to think about your essay's length. The word limit for the Common App's personal statement is 650 words, which is the equivalent of about a page and a few lines. So when you have sewn together all your highlights and begin snipping, flipping, and filling, try to keep yourself to a page and a half, or 800 words, max. This will ensure you create a pointed and contained story, and that you will be able to easily edit yourself down to the word limit during the final editing process. Word limit is not the be-all and end-all, but wouldn't it be sad if the Common App text box clipped off the last 2 words of your killer closer? Keeping this in mind, read through the essay. How does this story reflect on you as a person? Are there striking details to latch onto? What about descriptions and dialogue that will burn themselves into an admissions officer's brain? Does the essay hold your attention from beginning to end? And does your opener lure a reader into the action and your closer sum things up on a truly memorable note? Once you have read through your essay a few times and are confident about the structure, flow, and details of your story, it's time to replenish your essay writing brain cells by watching this cartoon T-Rex do a little dance. Congratulations, you are now a storytelling expert. And now let's look at Grayson's 4th essay, in which he pushes himself to new heights. What prompted Grayson to act in this essay? What were the consequences? Let's find out. Here you will see Grayson as the tower builder.
I built my first tower as a kitten, inspired by a midnight jaunt to the water bowl, when an unextinguished lamp drew my attention to a giant bookcase in the corner. What is in that mysterious tome on the top shelf? I wondered. As a young feline with a jump that propelled me only 3 feet in the air, I worried I would never find out. From the moment I arrived home with my adoptive humans, I spent hours perched on their laps, shoulders, or heads as they read. And they read a lot, from newspapers to novels to poetry. A few short weeks after my arrival, I had picked up the basics of written English. A few months later, I was nuzzling open the complete Shakespeare, working my way from Antony and Cleopatra to Twelfth Night. I devoured, sometimes literally, everything I could get my paws on. But my well of table-level books ran dry. I had wanted something new to sink my teeth into when I discovered the bookcase. It was an antique wonder, splendidly carved and varnished to a high shine. At the top, I saw the book of my dreams, the dictionary. My humans had referenced it many times as the book containing all knowledge, which appealed to me as a precocious kitten. In particular, I had an insatiable curiosity about cats. Having never found any tales of my species' storied accomplishments, I was sure I would uncover them in this mystical tome. I mewed at my humans, begging them to pull it down. Unfortunately, my conversational skills did not develop as quickly as my reading comprehension, and I was forced to take matters into my own paws. That night, I decided to build a tower of couch cushions to launch me to the top of the bookcase and into the arms of Merriam-Webster. The tower was rickety, but I built it high enough to climb to the 3rd shelf, where I discovered a collection of books about ancient Egypt. Reading about the pyramids, I learned so much about the engineering feats of ancient cats and their people. On my 2nd night of tower building, I harnessed the secrets of my ancestors and built a tower with a wider base. On this climb, I reached the middle shelf. The books were musty but magical, and I could sense the power of my chosen book even before I swatted it open. Chewing through Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, I encountered another bestriped brethren, the Cheshire Cat. If he could appear wherever he wanted, why couldn't I? The 3rd night, imbued with the confidence of a perpetually grinning cat and the absurdity of Wonderland, I built a tall, leaning tower. Using all the cushions on the couch, including the throws, I only reached the 2nd highest shelf. Disappointed, I nosed around half-heartedly until I discovered the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Aslan, the Lion King of Narnia, ruled with a selfless dedication. He served as a shining example for all cats. I knew I could not give up. On the final night, I built slowly and carefully with the patience and dedication of the King of the Jungle. I made it to the top shelf. I crept carefully towards the dictionary and nudged it open. It was just a collection of words. All this work for a lousy list? I thought to myself, preparing to jump down and knock over my tower in disgust. But as I looked down and realized how high I had climbed, it occurred to me that my nightly quest had turned me into a different cat. I had discovered the stories of my species, and through their teachings had become a better problem solver and more intrepid feline. Now, whenever I face a problem, I think back to my first climb. I remember that, though the top shelf may be high, my aspirations are higher.